What should a city car be like? Small, agile, clever. This is the Hyundai Inster, and it's like a combination of the original Renault Twingo and a Volkswagen Up. Let's see if it's any good.
Hyundai Inster is an extended version of the Casper, a model which has been on offer in Korea since 2021. Remember the Hyundai Atos? Casper replaced it, and since it is less than 360 centimeters long, it meets the light vehicles regulations, so it qualifies for tax incentives. Something that the EU should think about instead of promoting large heavy SUVs. The Inster, or Casper Electric in Korea, is 382.5 centimeters long, and these days it's hard to find a car of similar dimensions in Europe. We either have smaller models such as the Hyundai i10, Suzuki Ignis or Toyota Aygo Cross, or larger ones like the Hyundai i20, Citroën C3 or Toyota Yaris. Of the cars still available new that the Inster is closest to in terms of dimensions is the Mitsubishi Space Star. Among the models that have disappeared from the market or have been replaced by newer and larger generations, the Inster is roughly the size of the Audi A2, early generations of Citroën C3, the Peugeot 206, or the early generations of Renault Clio. Design is bold, quirky and fun, like the original Renault Twingo. The Twingo was also quite practical, like the Volkswagen Up, which did not see a second generation because it was killed, like many other small cars, by European regulations.
But why the Inster and not, for example, the Ioniq 1? Because, like the Hyundai Kona, the Inster is not built on a dedicated EV platform. Regardless, it has a long wheelbase. At 258 centimeters, it's larger than some B-segment cars. Unfortunately, there is no frunk, but there is a charging socket in the front.
Here, a few words about battery and charging. The Inster comes in 42 and 49 kWh battery variants. That's 39 and 46 kWh net. This is the bigger battery variant. Peak DC charging power is 85 kilowatts and the onboard AC charger takes 11 kilowatts. So fast charging 10 to 80% in 30 minutes and about 4.5 hours to full from a wall box.
The Inster is an example of intelligent use of space. Remember the Honda E and its pitifully small boot? At first glance, the Inster doesn't seem to be any better, but with space under the boot floor, there is actually 280 liters, and with the seats moved forward, even 351 liters. I will add that at the very bottom, under the carpet, there is also a compartment for a repair kit. Meanwhile, the Honda E, which was a larger car than the Inster, had only a 171-liter boot.
In the back, even with the seats pushed all the way forward, I still have legroom behind the driver's seat set to my driving position. I'm 175 centimeters tall. And after sliding the seat all the way back, both the driver and the passenger in the rear could be even taller because there is still some headroom left. Okay, I have my thighs up in the air, the batteries under the floor forced the designers to make a choice how tall the vehicle is supposed to be. They decided they do not want a van. There are no cup holders in the back, and there is only one USB-C port. However, the inserts you see on the doors and the seats allow you to attach accessories. I didn't see any standalone cup holders among them, but there is a folding tray table with a place to secure a cup. The only two ISOFIX anchor points are on the two rear seats, and there are only 2 rear seats. The Inster is homologated as a 4-seater. Therefore, the rear seat is divided 50-50. Both halves slide and can be folded flat.
And check this out, you can also fold the front passenger seat and the driver's seat as well, which gives you a flat-ish space measuring some 2 meters in length to lie down. At the widest point it's about 1.5 meters and in the narrowest in the boot 95 centimeters. Since it's an electric car you can leave it on to have heating working all night, and there's also a 230 volt socket to, I don't know, power a kettle. Now, if you are planning to sleep in the car more frequently, I'd get some sort of a mattress and don't take too much luggage unless you're going to use your bags as pillows. Oh.
The cockpit of the Inster is a greatest hits of Hyundai parts bin. There is something from the Ioniq 5, something from the Tucson, and probably from some other models as well. Since these are not elements from the most recent models, it also means old infotainment in which Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are wired. Maybe after the facelift this will change. Apart from this inconvenience, the cockpit is exactly what I expect from a car. This is what Volkswagen used to be before 2020. There is a display on which you can set things that are used less often, and there are physical buttons for the most important functions, including air conditioning.
Does the upholstery look familiar? Remember the first generation Kia Soul? There was a custard paint job version and there was a houndstooth pattern applied on the bonnet and on the tailgate and repeated on the upholstery. It looks like Hyundai took inspiration from Kia's design archives. I say go for it. Almost 20 years later, it still looks cool.
On the doors, more goodies from the options catalog. Here a card holder, maybe for a charging card or a parking card. Do we still use these instead of apps? Above the left knee is a parking brake, headlight level adjustment, steering wheel heating and ESP. On the steering wheel there are buttons for cruise control and media and a special button, more about which in a moment. During a test drive, pay attention to the gauge cluster. Anna, who is 160 centimeters tall, can't see the upper part of the dials regardless of how we set the seat and the steering wheel. Of course, within a range that ensures safe and comfortable driving position for her.
The infotainment system is mainly good for displaying Android Auto and driver aids. While the audible speed warning can be turned off by long pressing the mute button on the steering wheel, I recommend turning off the driver attention warning system every time as well, because it's overzealous, and this is why it's worth to program the special button on the steering wheel so that pressing it takes you into the driver aid settings. Below the screen are the aforementioned much coveted physical AC controls. Then there's a wireless charger, which is unnecessary because the phone is always dangling on a cable for Android Auto to work. Lower is another cubby, which is so low that you'll remember about things you left there only when you bend to plug something into the 230 volt socket like the kettle I mentioned earlier. So this is a place where you could, I don't know, put a power brick for stuff and things. Not very easy to reach. Still, having a kettle in a car, brilliant idea.
The cup holders are between the driver and the passenger in the seat cushion. Be careful because one of them is under the armrest, so taller vessels can only be placed in the front one. You can hang a second larger bottle, for example, on a door hook on the passenger side, because the door pockets are very slim. Above the glove box is a shelf with the USB and 12-volt outlets. Below is an average-size glove box. Around the passenger's left knee, there is another hook, maybe for a purse. A very sensibly designed interior, especially considering the small space that the engineers had to work with.
Depending on the battery capacity, the Inster has 97 or 115 horsepower and up to 327 or 370 kilometers range, respectively. A little less on the 17-inch rims. This is the larger battery and higher trim variant, so it's more powerful and it has larger wheels. I'm reviewing this car early in the spring of 2025, when it's still rather chilly and windy at times. Daytime temperature is below 10 degrees Celsius and there's even some frost at dawn. I park the Inster outside. I do not preconditioning it. After charging to full, the computer shows a range of about 360-370 kilometers, and based on kilometers driven, this range seems to be realistic. Urban energy consumption is about 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Similar on country roads, it increases slightly on expressways. On warmer days, this result will probably improve. However, if you do the math, the Inster will not cover the 360-370 kilometers under current conditions. I suspect region braking helps. It can be set to one of several recuperation levels, including I-pedal, which is Hyundai speak for one-pedal driving, or you can switch it to automatic mode, and then the car starts braking or regenerating energy when other vehicles in front start slowing down. You do this with the paddle shifters on the steering wheel.
Hyundai claims a 0 to 100 km per hour time of 10.6 seconds. I checked and I managed to achieve a result about half a second faster. The Inster proved to be quicker in normal mode than in sport mode. In the city, the Inster accelerates from a stoplight to 50 km per hour in about 4 seconds. So unless you're racing against something very sporty, you'll probably squeeze in front just before your lane ends.
The brakes are good, visibility is fine. The Inster has a camera system that displays the blind spot view in the instrument cluster when you turn on the indicator. The soundproofing is decent for a sort of budget city car. However, the turning circle is big for a small city car. Maybe it's because it shares its platform with an internal combustion engine model. If I had to find fault with anything, it's the stiffness of the suspension. The Inster weighs about 1,400 kilograms, and the optional 17-inch rims don't help to cushion that weight.
Price of the Hyundai Inster started at €23,900 for the base trim with a 42 kWh battery. This is the top trim, large battery model. With options, it costs €31,770. That's without any local incentives. Are there any in your region? Let me know.
The latest European safety regulations mean that instead of small, light cars, more and more large and heavy SUVs are driving around our towns. Electric cars may not be super light, but at least they can be relatively small. And the Inster is an example of how European manufacturers lost the first round. I can't wait to see what their game is going to be in the second round. And how do you like the Hyundai Inster? Let me know in the comment section below.
If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.